Well, Friday is finally here. Welcome to the show. It's IB Nation Sports Talk. We're up, we're rolling, along with Jesse Stiers. I'm Sean Stiers. Hope you're having a good one, getting ready for the weekend. We've got kind of a lighter topic on today's show since people have, pardon the pun, been a little salty this week, when it comes to Cruton and receivers and all that kind of good stuff. How are you today, Jess?
I'm great. Today was payday. Got up, got a walk in, grabbed some donuts on the way. It's the Italian festival in our neighborhood this weekend. And
Hitting that
so
up?
yeah, we'll go to the Italian festival this evening, but it's like a half mile away, and I love it. There's all kinds of fresh food, pizza, like meatball sandwiches, Italian sausage sandwiches, cavatelli and meatballs. You can play these like Italian street gambling games. You can buy sangria, wine, and it's a lot of fun. It's for like this little like church in our neighborhood. So
Nice, very nice. Good times, good times. So is that like going on right now already? Or
yeah, so they do it Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday,
oh wow,
from like
they really do that.
5 to 11 every night. So there's live music. There's like little kids games. It's a ton of fun, and it's like small enough that it's like you don't feel overcrowded. It's not like overrun by people. It's the perfect size.
Excellent. Well, we've got, like I said, a little bit lighter topic today, your sports bucket list. I think maybe we've done this one other time. Felt like the right time to do it again. People getting a little surly this week. It's the middle of July, and it's like we're 19 days away from the start of fall training camp. So it felt like a good time to break out the old bucket list. And welcome to you, Salty, as well, too. IB Happy Hour. I know Ryan and Brian just finished up a little bit ago and had a lot of, I put this up on the chat on the Champions Lounge and had a lot of good responses to it. And we will get to some of them in a minute. Do you want to just start with some of yours? What's on your bucket list? Have you looked over any of the stuff that's on the chat? Is all you probably haven't had time to today?
No, not yet. And I didn't want to because I wanted to be original, authentic, non-infiltrated.
All right. So, Salty, here's a couple from Salty. He said a Raiders game in Allegiant Stadium. And I think I'd probably like to experience Allegiant Stadium at least once. Doesn't have to be a Raiders game. He also said 2 full weeks of Wimbledon. And it's interesting because I don't think anyone on the chat thread that I put up mentioned Wimbledon. I wouldn't have to go to the full 2 weeks. I would like to attend like a center court Wimbledon match, like with an American, preferably, playing at least once. Like I don't watch like Wimbledon has been on for the last couple of weeks, and quite frankly, it's been too much because it's killed pretty much all the content on ESPN in terms of the McAfee show and some of the talk shows and stuff like that. But growing up, when there were still just 3 channels, Wimbledon was always on, and you had Americans, whether it was the men like John McEnroe and Jimmy Connors and Agassi a few years later and Chrissy Everett and just the whole crew. There were like so many good rivalries going on at Wimbledon. So that was definitely huge when I was growing up. So I would, that's one thing that I would like to attend. It's on my list.
Wimbledon doesn't really fall anywhere for me. It's like
I didn't figure it probably would.
Well,
You've
it's like
aged out of it.
it would be cool, but like it would be also one thing if I got like free tickets to it because it's going to be expensive, right? And so if I'm spending money on something, it's got to be something that I have like a deep passion for. It's kind of how I look at it because
right.
It's just I'd have to be kind of like handed Wimbledon tickets to be attending. Not that it wouldn't be cool and fun. It's just again, there's things that I have a higher burning passion for if I'm going to spend that kind of money.
Yeah, literally the only tennis match of any kind that I've ever been present for is. Do you remember when one of your friends was playing in high school and we were going to a Cubs game that day with
we picked him
with
up.
him and his dad, and we picked him up on the way. So we watched tennis, and literally that's the only tennis of any kind, like real, match that I've ever been present for.
I'd say the same.
Wimbledon would be cool, but again, I mean, it's like a lot of airfare, and you got to get there and tickets and the whole thing. Probably why.
Sloppy Joe is being mean to get this thing started.
I see that, man. Be in person for a Cowboys playoff loss in AT&T Stadium, and someone else had Bad Irish 2021 in the chat, watching the Cowboys absolutely choke in a home playoff game. I mean, just irrevocably pee the whole season away in the first quarter, just not even bother prepping for the game. I mean, honestly, that definitely hits a little bit close to home.
Definitely does.
All right, so what are a couple things on your list, Jess?
The one at the top of my list, and I don't know, this might surprise you, it might not. It realistically, it would be the Olympics. And I would go with the Olympics because it is, I mean, as a kid, the Olympics is something I loved. I remember in the summertime when there was, no responsibilities, no school, no getting up to go for a job, and it was just Olympics for a month. I'd stay up and watch all of it. You know what I mean? And,
yeah.
And it's fun because you feel a sense of, pride in your nation, but then also the other aspect of it is like, there's just so many different types of sports in one event. It's like a mega event in terms of sports. You're not just going for one singular, baseball game, football game. There's swimming, there's gymnastics, there's track and field, there's wrestling, there is stuff. Like, I don't think you could go to everything if you tried, you know what I mean?
For sure. There's no way you could go to everything.
So there is something there that is going to pique your interest in terms of being a sports fan. So the Olympics is up there for me. And again, they're the premier athletes in our country as well. So I just think that'd be a great experience. And when the Olympics comes to the US, I definitely plan on attending. Because I know a lot of my friends want to as well.
I was going to say, you'll have a chance. They're going to be in Los Angeles. It's 4 years from now, right? Is it the next Olympics after Paris? Yeah. The last time the U.S. hosted the Summer Games, anyway, was 96, Atlanta. And I remember thinking that, maybe I'll be able to do that. But I basically still had no money, just, fresh out of school and all that kind of stuff. So,
well, I was also 4 months old at that point.
That is very true. That is very true. I didn't
5
even
months
think about
old
that.
Of that.
You were. Yep. I remember though the 84 games, the last time they were in Los Angeles, McDonald's had this big promotion during the Olympics that summer. If the US won it was a scratch off card. And so you would scratch it off and it would give the event, whatever the event was, like the 100-meter dash. Mm-hmm. For example, if the U.S. won a gold in the event, you got a Big Mac. If they won a silver, you got French fries. And if they won a bronze, you got like a Coke, a drink, or whatever it was. And that was the year that Russia and the Eastern Bloc, they boycotted the Olympics. So basically the U.S. dominated that Olympics, and McDonald's was just giving away free food left and right all summer. That's right. And I ate well with my free food from McDonald's with all my scratch off cards. I remember that.
That's cool. I wish they would bring stuff like that back.
I know. Maybe they will. Maybe they will this time around. Who knows? I don't know. I mean, they need to do something to get people in, especially with as much fast food competition as they've got going right now. I mean, I've got a pretty long, and I'll let you get some more of yours. I've got a pretty long list, but how many?
I have 6. I cut it off at 6.
I mean, I mentioned Wimbledon, as being it was deeper on my list, but I would say a couple of the things that are up at the top are like sitting in Green Monster seats at Fenway Park. I still want to go to a game at Fenway Park, sitting in the Green Monster. We had talked about that, and go to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown. Those, I think, are probably at the top of my list right now.
Some of the other ones that I had at the top of my list was, so I also had Fenway Park. I'd like to see Cubs versus Red Sox. I would be a little bit pickier about it, but like just being in Fenway.
Yeah, like a lot of people. There were a lot of like see a Red Sox Yankees game at Fenway Park. I saw those come up multiple times in the thread that I posted.
I like the one of the Baseball Hall of Fame. I didn't think of that, but that would definitely be on my list as well. The thing I had second behind the Olympics was to attend a Cowboys Super Bowl game, and that's just
waiting a while.
that's like a 2-for-1 because 1, they have to get there, and 2, they actually have to win the game. So there's still a lot of baked in kind of disappointment. Last time, the closest thing I have to that is when I went to the Notre Dame National Championship game down in Florida, and of course they got cooked by Alabama. So like that's kind of what you know what I mean? Like that's while it'd be fun to go to the Super Bowl, you still don't want to see your team get embarrassed.
Exactly.
At the end of the day,
it's almost like you're
kind of setting yourself up for some big downfall.
Especially what you're going to have to spend to get a Super Bowl ticket, and if the Cowboys were to ever go, those tickets are going to cost even more because there's going to be such demand for them. I can't even imagine what like sitting at the top of the stadium if the Cowboys ever made the Super Bowl again would cost you. I would bet a couple thousand, don't you, just to sit up top?
Well, that's what I mean. But if I would rather pay $1,000 to see, the Cowboys in the Super Bowl than $1,000 to be sitting middle court at Wimbledon.
Oh, fair. That is true, but there's also less emotional attachment, to the result. So you could actually just kind of sit back and enjoy yourself with whatever at Wimbledon compared to the stress that you're going to feel after shelling out all that money to go see them.
That's true, because when you're there at that point, you're just having fun. Nothing is going to ruin your day, potentially. You're there, you're probably getting a couple of drinks, sitting out in the heat. Knowing me, I got some sort of, bet going for every match that's going on. So you just be sitting out there having fun. But you're right. There's no way that you could have a bad day. But obviously there is a chance for a bad day at a Super Bowl. So the next one I had after that was attending the Rose Bowl. And I preferably would like it to be.
It's on my list too.
Notre Dame to be there. But I would go for, like, if the matchup was right, I guess. If it was, you know what I mean? If it was kind of like the perfect storm of this is a good game, or maybe the Rose Bowl is the national championship that year, I think that's a case that I would like it. But yeah, I would love for Notre Dame to get out to the Rose Bowl. And I mean, the best thing possible would be Notre Dame playing in a national championship at the Rose Bowl. My buddy, who's a big Michigan fan, got to go to the Rose Bowl in their semi game against Alabama this past season. So,
oh, really?
Okay. Yeah. So that's cool. I know he really enjoyed that and talked about how great it was. But I know it's, outside of the Rose Bowl, it's the parade, it's everything else that kind of goes on around it. So that's kind of like, a total experience type situation.
DK with an asterisk, he said Notre Dame was in the Rose Bowl in 2020. The Rose Bowl played in Arlington, Texas, if you remember right, because of the COVID season. So, yes, the Rose Bowl, but not the Rose Bowl, unfortunately. And that's what I would, love to get out there. And if Notre Dame is ever in any kind of playoff game, basically, I think that I would have to make sure that I find my way out there covering that. I've been to the LA Coliseum. I've been to Michigan Stadium, and obviously Notre Dame. Haven't really been to a whole lot, like I've been to Purdue, been to Michigan State, kind of the regional ones. Haven't been to a whole lot of the other college stadiums, and that's obviously, one of the most historic around. So would definitely love to do that. From what I hear, it's not that in that much better shape than the LA Coliseum, and by this point it might even be in worse shape than the Coliseum because they've both been around for a while. What else you got?
Next on the list was golfing around at Augusta. I think that would be. I don't want to go to the Masters per se, but I'd like to play around.
Like the Masters. Play there.
Yeah, I think in terms of golf, again, it'd be a fun day, but I mean, it's just kind of like a lot of standing and watching, moving a hole to hole. I'd rather be the person playing the course than actually, attending these tournaments type situations. So like, playing at Pebble Beach, playing at Augusta, playing at the nice courses is more, I think, up my alley at this point. And then the last one that I had.
Hold on, pump the brakes a little bit. Let's not, let's try to slip some listeners in here as well. Like, speaking of golf, USMA 87, he had some of the golf courses on his list. He also says that he's been lucky to be at a lot, but he says he's played at Spyglass as a high school kid. He's a couple hours from Monterey, where Pebble Beach is. Like, I just went, drove through the course at Pebble Beach last year, or, around the course at Pebble Beach. I've never played there. And obviously when I was out there in Monterey, we would go out there a little bit, but, me, I'm not a golfer, so I never actually played it. That's not a big desire or anything, but obviously a very beautiful setting and the whole thing. So very cool backdrop. Go ahead.
The last one on my list was Allegiant Stadium. I think that would be a lot of fun, and then I would combine it into going to Vegas, because I haven't done that as well. So like the package deal of going to Vegas and then, seeing a football game there. I like, I'm into the stadium stuff. It's one of the nicer new stadiums. So it'd be a lot of fun to go in there and see how cool it is. It's like the premier, kind of destination right now. And I think I could almost say the same about the new Rams stadium in LA. I think that would also be fun. I've never been to LA either. So it'd be a lot of fun to do either of those, really.
Yeah. SoFi Stadium, USMA 87 is saying that. He said he'd like to see a game there. They played the national championship game there a year or two ago. DK is advising anyone in their 20s go to the Olympics. He says you'll thank him later. Okay. Softy for a parade. I'm not so sure about that. DK also said he would like to take the IB staff to a hockey game as an educational experience. I mean, I've been to some hockey games, maybe you could educate me.
Doesn't DK know that you've called hockey games? You should send him your old tapes.
I'd have to actually have those tapes to be able to send them. What the quality is, I'm not sure either. So Sean Stewart says Indy 500, and it's amazing because, we obviously just live a couple hours from Indy. I've been to the Brickyard. Like the first year that I lived here, went with a couple guys who I worked with to the Brickyard. Was it the 400 or the 500? Whatever it is. We went, we sweated a lot. And, obviously it's not going to be quite as hot in May when the Indy 500 is, but I've just never had that desire. But obviously if you're into racing, I completely understand why you would want to do that. So, yeah, Allegiant. I've got Lambeau Field on mine. Like, you've got Allegiant on yours, Lambeau Field, and hopefully, like, with the
I don't need to see the Packers. I do it for the Cowboys. The Notre Dame game.
I was gonna say, don't need to see the Packers, but the Notre Dame Wisconsin game is just around the corner. So that is very high on my list. Like, Cowboys related to me, I would just like to go see like a Cowboys-Eagles game sometime in Arlington. Basically, that would.
Yeah, I'm not going to Philadelphia. I've thought about it because I don't live too far, but
not going to happen.
Those fans are. I'd have to wear completely neutral. I would not wear Cowboys gear.
Yeah, you would have to wear a bulletproof vest if you were.
I would just wear like all black, and no one would know who I'm cheering for.
Yeah, I'm curious. USMA 87 says he's been to Game 7 of the World Series. Which World Series did you go to? He said a Raiders playoff game. 49ers beat Ditka's Bears on Monday night. That's a pretty good list that you got there. And obviously, like Jesse and I have been to a few different NFL stadiums. We've been to, I'd like to see the Cowboys. We've been to Arlington, been to Detroit, been to Soldier Field, been to Indianapolis, and we'll hit Cleveland this year. I actually
maybe Pittsburgh.
Right after I got to when I was done, in my Army days, when I finished in Monterey, they sent us to Goodfellow Air Force Base in San Angelo, Texas, which is Western Texas. You are out there. But we got there in the middle of November, and then within a couple of weeks, Thanksgiving rolls around, and we had a few days off. So we packed up in the car, and 4 or 5 of us drove up. It was Tom Landry's last season, and we saw Cowboys Oilers on Thanksgiving Day. We walked up, there were empty seats everywhere. The Cowboys were so bad. But at least I can say I've been to a Cowboys game on Thanksgiving Day, and it was Tom Landry's final season with the Dallas Cowboys. So wasn't necessarily, seeing them would have been a bucket list. I would definitely say, the fact that I got to see a Cowboys game when Tom Landry was still there, that it's kind of cool 30 some years later. DJ from the board said he wanted to take a trip and see 15 to 20 minor league parks. He says he's always wanted to do a ballpark trip. And that's something I've thought about as well. Like ballpark trip, mine I think would be more major league. Maybe you hit, some minor league parks along the way. It seems like some of the coolness, the trendiness of the ballpark stuff has sort of worn off over the years. But I think a ballpark trip would definitely
I think
be
the
fun.
best way to do a ballpark trip would be starting out in Seattle, going down the coastline, and then hitting basically, all the West Coast teams. So you could hit San Francisco, and then you could go to Oakland. You could get the Dodgers in.
While they're still in Oakland anyway.
Right. The Angels, the Padres, and then you could work your way over to Arizona.
Right.
And then after Arizona, you could just go straight over to the Texas stadiums. You could go up to Colorado and then hit, Kansas City and St. Louis. And I think that would be kind of like if you split the country in half and did kind of that west and then got towards, middle of the country towards the end. I think that would be preferable because, let's just be honest, like the landscape along the West coastline would be great. You could stop and go to national parks. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, there's a ton you could do. Yeah.
There's so much you could do along. And then just obviously as you come upon them, just go to the baseball games as well.
Yeah. That'd be the perfect RV trip, I think,
Yes.
actually. Like if you were going to do something like, speaking of which, from the boards, this is a good one. Elmer Layden says 2 falls in a row. He would like to get an RV and follow Notre Dame football team from the first game to the last, going to every pep rally at every campus, eating all the cool spots. He said, I did 2 years so I can go to all of our rivals' campuses. I would drive home during the Notre Dame bye week, but other than that, I'm on the road. And if the team goes overseas during the season, I'll fly and attend. This also includes the postseason. That would be an awesome experience to do something like that. You'd have to be retired and have tons of money to do it, though.
Very true.
That would be very cool, though. That would be, again, like you talk about the perfect RV trip. That would be sweet to do that. And, like you said, do it 2 years in a row so that you make sure that you're hitting, like you're going to see Notre Dame USC at Notre Dame one year. You're going to see them out in the Coliseum the next year. I mean, we had a lot of people, obviously, wanting to check Notre Dame off the list. Sean Stewart has one on here. Do you remember your first Notre Dame game?
I remember the opponent. I don't remember physically being there.
And that would be?
West Virginia.
That's right. West Virginia. Do you remember the rain that day?
I do not.
It was raining that day.
Good to know.
We had to get our rain ponchos for that one. I could have been sitting in that dry press box, but I took you to your first game out in the rain that day instead. Army-Navy was a pretty common one. Have you ever wanted to go to an Army-Navy game?
No.
Really?
I mean, it'd be fun, but it's not like, again, it's not like I'm like.
Not your bucket list, yeah.
Yeah, I'm not seeking it out.
Yeah. I think it would be I actually have always kind of wanted to go to an Army home game like in October, because if you've ever seen the photos of the Army campus, just, like the foliage and all that stuff, fairly similar to here in South Bend, but like that whole experience seems like that would be a good one. I'm sure USMA 87 has probably been to a couple of those, but Army home game has always kind of appealed to me. But the Army-Navy game, obviously, a lot of, pageantry and the whole thing. Allen Fieldhouse, Kansas basketball home game came up a few times in the Champions Lounge thread today,
nothing
too.
Special about that place?
No, nothing at all. Nothing. You were born in Lawrence, but you didn't get to go to your first KU basketball game at Allen Fieldhouse until just a few years ago. What did you think of the experience?
Yeah, I think it's cool there. There's obviously a lot of history. But I mean,
I think that the parallel is like Notre Dame football, Kansas basketball, basically. Like the tradition and just everything that goes on around the whole thing. Because like we went to see, it was like Christmas, so it was like the last game before Christmas. They were playing Omaha, so the opponent was not special by any means, but the place is still packed for the game, and just everything that that goes on and the excitement inside Allen Fieldhouse was still like the environment was really cool for that game. So like you can imagine what it would be for like a big opponent like Oklahoma or Oklahoma State, whoever it happens to be. Missouri back in the day, those were always the fun games. A lot of people wanted to go to like different college football stadiums. I don't think you had any college stadiums other than the Rose Bowl on your list. Are there any that you would want to hit? A night game at LSU was on, a lot of people's list. Does that appeal to you?
No, I'd like to see Notre Dame play at Penn State. I think that'd be a fun one to go to.
Yeah, I think so as well.
I think
hard to get in and out of, but I'm sure it'd be fun.
I'm trying to
like for LSU, I'd actually like, as opposed to a football game, I'd actually like to see a baseball game at Alex Box Stadium. Like for college baseball, I don't think there's probably much better, home field type environment that you're going to get there. I've only seen it on TV. Never got to experience it though. Not thinking of any other stadiums off the top of your head?
I'm trying to think if I know there's one because I've been to a few actually, like when I start thinking about it. And so I'm trying to think like if there's any, kind of like iconic ones that I'm missing. Because I feel like in this region, like, Michigan, Ohio State, Notre Dame, Michigan State, Purdue. Like I'm pretty sure I've been to most of those. Maybe not Purdue.
Tyler says Michigan in Ann Arbor. No, Notre Dame versus Michigan in Ann Arbor. Under the lights.
I did that.
You did that. It was sopping rain, and that was, of course, a very disappointing trip to Ann Arbor.
Yeah. The favor got returned because when my buddy came out, it was that miserable Labor Day where it was the Notre Dame Michigan night game to start the season. And it was so hot and muggy, and then it rained, and then it got even more hot and muggy. So it was like, both of those experiences. And the first time I didn't care because Notre Dame won, but then the second time it was obviously miserable because of all the rain. But I'm going to stick to, I think I'd like to see a game at Alabama and at Penn State. Those are the two that I'm ending it with.
I think those are good. I always wanted to be able to see like Michigan, Ohio State in the horseshoe. I don't know if that's as high on my list anymore. It's definitely not as high on my list anymore. But like Mike is saying, the Olympics, we were talking about that earlier. And I was just thinking, man, the Olympics in Los Angeles, probably the Olympics anywhere, just as big as the cities are, like trying to get around, that would just be.
He's got to be mobile. He's got to be on foot, get some scooters.
Yeah, depending on. The venues are probably going to be spread out all over. Did you see actually that when LA hosts the Olympics, they're actually going to have softball and one other sport, might be equestrian. I'm not sure, but softball and one or two other sports are going to be in Oklahoma.
No, City. I didn't see that.
Yeah, they're going to actually host that there, which would, obviously they've got a great
stinks because you want to be part of all of it.
Yeah,
it's else.
Exactly. It's got a great facility, but it's like everyone else is in LA and we're in Oklahoma City. Yay. Fitz 1105 said attend Notre Dame fantasy camp. I wonder, like, if any of the people in the chat right now, have you done the Notre Dame football fantasy camp before? Have you ever wanted to do that, Jess?
No, I did Notre Dame football camp as a kid. That was pretty fun.
Yeah, a lot different. I think it would be a lot different as an adult out there, overweight and sweaty in June or July or whatever they do it in the uniforms as well. I don't know. Ryan Roberts said he wanted to be a permanent co-host of IB Nation Sports Talk.
When did he say that?
He said that in the Champions Lounge.
Oh, right. Oh, as his sports bucket list?
Yes.
Well,
I mean, I feel like he knows someone who could take care of that.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty easy decision.
Don't have to go too far. Dwin5 said, go to a Notre Dame game and meet the IB crew. One might be more fun than the other. I don't know. Greg Bell had a long list from Notre Dame home playoff games to Duke, North Carolina at Cameron. That came up a few times.
That'd be a good one.
Yeah. Indy 500, the Masters, and going to a game, the Blue Field at Boise State.
Ugh, that's golf.
Clear Screen 25, speaking of golf, wants to play a round of golf with Paige Spiranak. How high would that rank for you? Like, you want to play with Paige?
No, that would probably get me in trouble. So I would stay away from that one.
This is an interesting one, and I'm not sure. Ram Cray 75, he had like 3, I think. But one of them was he wants to shake Jimmy Johnson's hand before either of us pass away into the great beyond, is the way he said it. I wonder the significance of that. Like, why Jimmy Johnson? Why would he want to shake Jimmy Johnson's hand? I feel like that's a really interesting one. Like, most people, because of the old Notre Dame-Miami rivalry, there's other things they'd like to do with Jimmy Johnson than shake his hand, I think.
Yeah. I don't know where that's going.
I don't either. Is there anyone that you would like to meet?
Yeah.
Is there anyone at the top of the list of people you'd like to meet?
It's going to sound random, but like Aramis Ramirez is up there. David Ortiz is up there.
Aramis Ramirez. That's an interesting one.
Des Bryant is up there.
Really? Ezekiel Elliott. You've always loved some Zeke. He's not as high on the list
they just didn't really accomplish much, you know. Like,
ooh. Well, what did Des accomplish?
Yeah, he was still a beast. Like, Zeke was good for those first couple of years, but like Des still dominated. Let's see.
Sean Stewart says Lou Holtz. I think a lot of Irish fans would like to meet him.
Anthony Rizzo would probably be up there.
Okay.
All
right. Well, that's okay. We don't have to spend any more time on that. You've listed some good ones. Rob Osgood. Rob Osgood has an interesting story here. He says he's 52 years old. He lives in North Carolina. He's been a lifelong Notre Dame fan. He says his grandfather was born in 1896 and lived in California. He was a devout Notre Dame fan, and told him stories of watching Notre Dame with The Rock, the Four Horsemen, etc. He said he has seen Notre Dame when they played at North Carolina, UNC, and Duke, but have never seen a Notre Dame home game. His goal is to come to campus, watch a home game, walk around campus, just feel the air, the excitement for the game, take in all his years of being a Notre Dame fan. That's an interesting, like 52 years old, and his grandfather was born in 1896. Like, his grandfather must have been pretty old when he had, like, maybe they were Catholic and they just kept having kids. I don't know. But for him to be 52 and for his grandfather to have been born in 1896, that's like, because I think my grandparents were basically born in the 19 teens, basically, so about 20 or so years after his, and mine,
Did he say dad or grandfather?
Grandfather.
Oh, okay.
But even still, 1896 for a 52-year-old to have a grandfather who was born in 1896, so if you're 52.
I did the math. So if it was his dad, he would be, if this guy was his dad, he would have been 76. But if it's his grandpa, you could have, you could get someone in that maybe had a kid when he was 56 or
true
46 or, but yeah, just the 18, that threw me off. 1896.
Right.
That's 2 centuries.
A lot of people want to take, family, go to a Notre Dame game, take family, all that kind of stuff. So here's the last one that I'll say. This is from Gorm is Orr. He says, had a lot, or he actually had a lot, but here's a very specific one. He said, go to the first quarter of a Notre Dame Michigan game at Notre Dame Stadium, right up to the point where I get ejected for foul and abusive language towards anyone ever associated with the Cheats program.
That, surprisingly, that kind of, I was getting into it a little bit with a fan during my Michigan and Notre Dame experience. And it was this Michigan fan sitting behind me, and he was just being brutal the whole game. And even my buddy, who's a Michigan fan, was on my side in this situation. He was just making it a point to be brutal. And at one point I kind of, it was a long day. At some point I said something back to him, and he was like ready to kind of fight. And I was like, I'm not getting ejected out of this game after the money that was spent to get here just because of your dumb butt. So I'm just going to kind of, stay over here.
Yep. Anthony says he's 58 and his grandfather was born in 1890. All right. It just seems crazy because that's 134 years ago. So, wow. All right. Well, good stuff. A lot of good submissions to the bucket list. A lot of fun stuff. I can't remember. What was your number one? Like
Olympics.
Your number one is the Olympics. I would like to go to the Olympics, but I'll definitely say it's not quite as high as yours.
We get it. You don't have national pride.
I do. It's just like I said, man, like trying to get in and out of LA to all those different venues. I don't know about that. Ryan Roberts in the house. We mentioned his bucket list a little bit ago.
Ryan.
Jesse, are you ready for rapid fire?
I am, because I think we have some fun topics tonight.
Okay. I'm glad. I think that there's some recurring topic even that we're going to get into at some point. So here's what I want you to do. First of all, rank the top 3 Notre Dame players with the most expectations on them this upcoming season.
So this is a loaded question because I think expectations to me is you're kind of like, I'm not going to say Jordan Botelho in this situation because all eyes are already kind of on him. To me, expectations are maybe someone that we're not worrying about because we think they're just going to perform at a super high level. You know what I mean? Like when we're looking at like potential things that could go wrong, we're not thinking about this person because we expect them to execute at a high level and never kind of be an issue. So number one, I think is easy. It's Riley Leonard. I mean, it's the premier position. It's quarterback. It's the thing that's been lacking at Notre Dame for, at least a couple seasons now. It's the reason why they have a new offensive coordinator, and it's the offense as a whole has to catch up to the defense. And that's led by Riley Leonard at quarterback. So that's the easy number one.
I agree with that completely. He is number one on my list as well. And, kind of to your definite, like you said, I toyed with what's the phrasing of this going to be? Is it expectation? Is it pressure? Like there are a lot of different ways, and the one choice of word can sort of change things, like Botelho, like you said, maybe he's pressure, but the definition that you kind of gave is basically what I'm thinking about. It's like these guys are just flat out expected to perform at a high level, and essentially, if like there are others who could go sort of either way. Like I don't think there's a ton of expectation, for example, on Jordan Botelho, because I think a lot of people maybe have kind of written him off to an extent. So if he ends up having a great season, it's going to be major icing on the cake. Whereas Riley Leonard, if he doesn't have a really good season, like think of all the stuff that we've been talking about this week with the wide receivers and all the questions that came up in the We In, We Out show yesterday about wide receiver production and what it can mean for future recruiting at the position and all these different kind of things. It obviously starts with the quarterback, and the scheme that the quarterback is going to play in plays into it as well. But I think that you go get Riley Leonard because he can be a championship quarterback, a kind of guy who can get you to the college football playoff. So it definitely starts with him being at the top of the list in terms of the players who have the most expectations on him. Who's next on yours? Curious to see if we have the same three or how much this is going to deviate.
Yeah, I was looking forward to this as well. So I'm going to switch over to defense.
Okay.
And I think a lot of people might say Benjamin Morrison, but the thing about that is the injury. I think the injury puts a wrinkle into things because you don't know what to expect. You don't know when he's going to be healthy. And if he doesn't maybe perform as well, it's just going to be like, okay, well, he has this shoulder thing going on, right? So that's kind of got to be the reason why. So I looked at it. This one was tough, but I have to go with Drake Bowen just because of the magnitude of the position he's playing, and to me, I think that there's a lot of expectation for him to step in and kind of just be able to command this defense at a young age. He's never started a game before. And again, it's the Mike linebacker position. It's basically the commander, of the defense. There's a lot that goes into it. So, and I think a lot of, defensive success is going to be predicated over, like, you can't have a weak link in the middle of your defense. Like, someone has to step up and play that role well. So I went with Drake Bowen, and it was close with my number 3, but I'll wait for my number 3.
That's an interesting one. I hadn't really thought of Drake Bowen because, like, when you flipped it to the defense, the guys that I have on defense are really they are like same sort of level, same kind of expectations I think that Riley Leonard has. It's just that they're the defensive counterpart, and I kind of put Xavier Watts and Benjamin Morrison 1-2. And like DK says, Watts because he already has defensive player of the year. So it's just like a given. We expect an extremely high level of play from Xavier Watts as a result. Benjamin Morrison as well. And I kind of put, I put them like in the same spot here together on this same level. So I cheated a little bit and slipped an extra one in here. But like you said, with Benjamin Morrison, the biggest question is what exactly is his health going to be and how does that affect his level of play? But if the guy is healthy, you expect an extremely high level of play for him, just like Xavier Watts because of everything that Watts did last year. You don't expect any major slip-ups from Xavier Watts. Like it's given that you expect him to walk out there and just be great game in and game out. Same with Morrison if he's healthy. So that leaves us with one more. Which side of the ball are you going?
I went offense. I think we're going to agree on this one. But if we don't, I think I know where you're going to go.
Okay.
But for me, I went with Jeremiah Love at 3 because of Audric Estime leaving and how impactful the run game was. And I think we're just kind of assuming that Jeremiah Love is going to be able to step in and production-wise do enough to kind of keep up where Estime is. And then on top of that, we're asking him to catch passes out of the backfield, line up in the slot, et cetera, which is fine. But when you're asking a guy to do more, I think that adds more expectations. You are adding more to his plate.
True.
So, again, you expect more out of him because, he's going to produce not only by running the ball, catching the ball, being a decoy with motions. Like, there's so much that he's going to do on offense. I think he has a big role. And again, that's a large expectation because if he doesn't do well and the running back room starts to sputter a little bit, I think that's a big problem.
Absolutely. Especially like you lose a guy like Jabron Payne who goes into who would have gone into the season as more of a role type guy with like short yardage and all that different kind of stuff, goal line. Obviously his injury keeps him out of that, but that's my point is like you don't have a Jabron Payne who maybe, if one of these less experienced guys was kind of sputtering, maybe Jabron could help take some of the slack off him. But there is going to be, like for both Love and Jadarian Price, you're right, there's going to be a pretty hefty level of expectation for them because there's a huge void that has to be filled with Audric Estime's departure.
Yeah, sure. And to me, what really put it over the top was, again, that they've come out and already said that we're going to get the ball to Jeremiah Love via the pass game as well. He's not only going to be, responsible for the run game. He's in the pass game, which is, again, I'm excited about because he's one of your most explosive players. So how do you get, touches, the most amount of touches?
My last guy,
wide receiver.
It is actually not a wide receiver. It is Charles Jagasaw.
Oh, is he kind of like your ace card here, your wild card?
Well, I mean, look, he's the left tackle, and I think that really, like, he had a pretty clean Sun Bowl, and everything that he came in, the recruiting rankings. I mean, almost all these offensive linemen come in with high recruiting rankings, but I mean, as the left tackle, you're losing one of the greats basically to have played the offensive line in Joe Alt based on where he was drafted and how he performed here at Notre Dame. But I don't think people are expecting much drop off, on that side. They're expecting him to keep Riley Leonard clean and to play at a very high level right away.
You could make the argument he's the Drake Bowen of the offense.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Yeah, like kind of almost everything that you said about Drake Bowen, you can definitely, flip it with offensive stuff and talk about that, because
yes. I mean, he plays the most important offensive line position, and he's the youngest.
Took the words right out of my mouth. He's the most important offensive lineman. He's a left tackle, and it's only going to be his second career start in the third game that he's ever played in. But there's a very high expectation that he is going to play that at a very high level. So
I didn't go wide receiver because none of them have a proven track record. I think this is the year for everyone to break out.
Yeah,
that's more on Riley Leonard to get them the ball, and that's why if you say Riley Leonard, I think you kind of have to cancel out the wide receivers because those kind of go hand in hand to me. And again, none of them are bona fide studs. I'm not saying that they don't have the ability to be, but none of them have proven to be yet.
Of course, Salty has a high expectation of Jaden Greathouse. If Tommy were here, he would say the Bo Show. But I think it's TBD in terms of which guy is actually going to be, the guy, who produces at that level. I think that's going to be something that we find out over time. Shamrock's in shenanigans on the Riley Leonard. He says Leonard and the O-line can be the difference between 10-2 and a first-round exit from the playoffs and a deep run into the playoffs.
I can't say it better.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So we talked yesterday about Notre Dame and Miami playing more regularly. So in keeping with some of the questions that we did recently with USC and Michigan players, which one former Miami Hurricane player would you have wanted to play for Notre Dame?
This is an easy one. I can't believe you teed this up for me. This is
so right. We're both going to have the same answer, I think, right?
Yeah. I came up with a couple more after that just to be more fun and not to drive anyone nuts. But it's no doubt Michael Irvin.
Yes. I mean, John nailed it. Michael Irvin is, I mean, that's, like Notre Dame has obviously had some good wide receivers, Michael Floyd, Tim Brown, Golden Tate, Samarjo, Rocket, Will Fuller most recently. But Michael Irvin is still like 35 years on since his playing days ended, the third all-time leading wide receiver in Miami
imagine
history.
If he played in an offense today.
Yeah, exactly. And that was playing in the 1980s. Yeah. Third all-time receiver. And the guy was just like, he was the typical guy that you loved to hate when he was playing. Like, he represented everything that you hated about Miami, basically, when he was
loved
playing.
him if he's on your team, but you hate him if he's not.
That's absolutely right. Right down to the fact it's like, why is this wide receiver who's loud and yelling at everybody, why is he wearing number 47? I never could figure that out, but at least he rectified it once he got to the NFL when he switched to 88. But it is Michael Irvin without a doubt for me. Who else you got?
Next were Edgerrin James and Ray Lewis.
I like those. To me, it's just crazy the amount of talent that came out of that school in the 80s and 90s, man. Just insane.
A machine.
I know. Like, I hated Vinny Testaverde. I didn't hate Kozar as much as Testaverde. Just like Testaverde just grinded on you, it seemed like. Of course, he was throwing all those passes to Michael Irvin as well. But Archer 452, Sean Taylor or Ed Reed. Those are two really good ones.
So, like, those guys are – it's like, yeah, but, like, to me, it's like secondary players. Like, is that what's sexy? Is that what's selling the tickets? You know what I mean? Like,
right.
Yeah, I'm not taking anything away from them. But, like, to me, you got to go with, like, a star offensive player. It's so – like, people don't love – it's like in baseball, chicks love the deep ball. It's the same thing in football. Like, I think that's the one regret I ever had was I never got good in an offensive position because you tell people you play defense, they're like, what position do you play on defense? What do? You just go tackle the other team. You don't score touchdowns. You know what I mean? Like, everyone wants the guy who scores touchdowns.
Devin Hester scored a lot of touchdowns, defensive back primarily, but as the greatest NFL return man in history. Anyway, that's another good one from Sean Stewart.
If we're going that route, like, give me Warren Sapp. You know what I mean? Like, if that would be my guy on defense.
What do you mean if we're going that route? Like, just because you're saying if you're going to name a defensive player that you would take Warren Sapp instead.
I take Sapp or Ray Lewis.
I can see that. Yeah, I wanted to be able to nominate Russell Maryland. I mean, he did nice when he was in the NFL, but he was never Warren Sapp, that for sure.
See, I couldn't go Reggie White because he's
Clontarf as Jim Kelly, and it's not close. I mean, well, maybe not close for you, but I mean, that makes a lot of sense, though. Like, when you think like any of those quarterbacks, basically, that Miami had back then. I mean, again, like Testaverde and Kozar and Kelly, and Mark Richt, all of those guys, I believe, were on the roster at the same time at one point down there at Miami. It was just crazy when Notre Dame was obviously running the triple option back then under Lou Holt. So I don't know that having any of those guys would have done you, that much good. I don't know if Lou was going to change his offense that much because even with Rick Meyer and, he was still running some of the option wrinkles and stuff like that.
Didn't Miami have Steve Walsh as well?
Yeah, Walsh came at the tail end. He was right after Testaverde because Dallas
Gino
drafted
Torretta
him in the supplemental. Yeah, Gino Torretta, 90s quarterback. Did
you hear my comment? Reggie White's a good one, but if I'm going, I can't let my boy Michael Irvin down. Greg Olsen, but like Notre Dame cranks out tight ends. It can't go Greg Olsen either.
Greg Olsen started here before he transferred. He was at Notre Dame before he transferred, unfortunately. All right, fill in the blank. Notre Dame and USC women's basketball announcing today a 2-game home-and-home series is blank.
Is electric. I mean, it's so electric. I didn't even get the question on the rundown, but I mean, we're talking about, one of the most prolific, or popular players in terms of, I can't think of her name right now for you. Juju Watkins. And you combine, obviously Notre Dame and Hannah Hidalgo, and the overall presence that they're going to be as a team next season. I think that's a great series for both sides. And it's good to see, it's a good matchup for both teams. It's a good test during the season. So I think those are going to be really fun games.
going to be a national spotlight kind of game. You've got like two of the two best sophomores in all of women's college basketball in Watkins and Hidalgo. Hidalgo won the award for the point guard of the year, and Watkins won the award for the shooting guard of the year as true freshmen, both of them last year. And then you throw on top of that, Niele Ivey and Lindsey Gottlieb are two of the best, up and coming. Gottlieb has been around a little bit, but she has really turned USC around very quickly in the 3 years that she's been there. But, like they went to the Elite Eight last year. Notre Dame obviously has been to the Sweet 16 3 years in a row. And you've got two of the best really two of the best teams in all of women's college basketball are going to be playing this November. So it's very exciting. And again, like you talk about national spotlight, the only thing that kind of stinks is USC must have had some kind of, something with their schedule, because Notre Dame, no, hold it, 24, 25. No. Okay. So I got that wrong. USC is going to come here and return the trip next season. I was thinking it was in 2 seasons, but I had to kind of double, like 25, 26 is next season. Mm-hmm. So, which kind of seems crazy. So yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun they'll go to Los Angeles in November this season, and then USC will come back out here next year. So some great college basketball. All right, Jess, just for you, yeah. Pittsburgh Pirates rookie pitcher Paul Skenes has been announced as the All-Star game starter for the National League. Scale of 1 to 10. How excited are you?
0 out of 10. My nightmare just keeps getting worse. I think I got to just close my mouth, because every time I say something, it just gets worse and worse. And I think this time's a little bit more excusable, because I think it has to do with, where guys are pitching in terms of the All-Star game. You know what I mean? So I think if, like, to me, I would have went Reynaldo Lopez, the guy for the Braves, but I'm pretty sure he's pitching like a day or two before the All-Star game. So I think it came down to scheduling, so I can't really be as mad about this. But, at this point, we might as well just call this the MLB marketing game, because they don't care about All-Stars. They care about promoting the game and picking the best to middle to average players. It's not a game that's getting the top players.
Don't tell me you're calling Skenes a middle to average player.
I'm not calling Skenes that, but there's other players who Skenes is really good. I just don't think that he's played enough to be there. And I think there are other guys that are there that got kind of, that just got put in because they're more popular than a guy who's actually better than them.
I mean, all he did was pitch 7 no-hit innings with 11 strikeouts before he got pulled the other day. 99 pitches.
Should have kept going. No hitter.
11 strikeouts, 99. Well, his manager's the one who made the decision to get him out of there.
Didn't he throw like 130 pitches every World Series game?
He was on the Dan Patrick show today. Have you seen the clip?
Yeah, I saw it. They got the manager called in.
You're very excited about this. This is a 10 for me.
No,
like you're sitting
of course it is.
You're sitting here complaining about, it's marketing, and like, can't it be both? Like, why?
Well, they got the best. They got Skenes going against what's the AL's top 3 going to be? Like Gunnar Henderson, like Adley Rutschman.
If Shohei Ohtani was healthy,
wouldn't you
want, like, if he was healthy enough to pitch right now, wouldn't you want to see Skenes and Ohtani as the 2 starting pitchers in the All-Star game?
I'd like to see Ohtani. Yeah.
How many other pitchers can the average fan even name right now? And you've got one of the best in Skenes. He's got a sub-2 ERA right now. He's got 1 million strikeouts.
Yeah, but the Pirates suck.
He won a college baseball national championship a little more than a year ago. Then he's the number 1 draft pick. Then he gets called up, and now he's starting the All-Star game. I think it's a perfect storm, man. Like, why wouldn't you want to get him out there right away? One of the best young players in the game, who has absolutely been dominant since he got called up, and is, 11 starts now
11
that he's had? Why wouldn't you want to have him out there for at least an inning to start the game?
Yeah. Maybe
what
not.
do you mean? Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. If that's what you're looking forward to.
Yeah. If that's your thing.
Yeah.
Good young players in the All-Star game. If that's your thing. Okay, cool. Whatever.
Anthony, I can say that. The Cubs suck too. They're both. Well, the Cubs did just sweep the O's. I don't know if you saw that.
I just feel like you've been hanging around Vince far too long because you're just crapping on anybody who's not on your team. It's
That's not true.
They're in my division. I can't stand them now.
There's just a very intentional push to get this guy going, and it's like, why didn't you just let him start the beginning of the season then? You know, like that's just my whole gripe. It's like, yes, he's good, but like
that's on the Pirates. That's not on Major League Baseball. You know, just like I said yesterday, it's service time manipulation. They get an extra year on his contract with him because they held him back. You know, like that's the players union wants to do something about that. They need to negotiate that.
Just like there's eligibility for all rewards and season accomplishments and milestones, that should hold true for the All-Star game.
Speaking of career milestones, the late Mike Leach had a 59.6% career winning percentage before he passed away. The College Football Hall of Fame requires coaches to have a minimum 60% winning percentage to qualify. Waive that minimum to induct him when he's eligible after next year. Do you buy or sell waiving that standard to get Mike Leach into the College Football Hall of Fame?
Yeah, in this situation, I believe it's a special situation. I do believe that he should, that this should be waived. And my main rationale for this is going to be elementary. But the way I think about it is, imagine you're at the end of the semester, you've been reeling in a really hard class, you need a passing grade, and after your final, your grade is coming out to a 59.6, right? And that's a D plus, and you need that C minus just to pass the class, right? And it's like the professor being like, you know what, 59.6, I'm not going to round you up to that 60. I'm just going to give you the D plus, sit you out, not give you the C minus and be, semi-understanding. And that's kind of how I view this case is, Mike Leach, does he need a couple more wins to get that tick up to, to a whole 60.0%? Sure. But at the end of the day, it's a special circumstance. It was, tragic what happened to him. And he was a college football pioneer, and he was a respectable guy. He was, I believe he always did things the right way. So I think that there is times, like any other circumstance, special situations, and that would fall under, my special situations wand.
You're a special situation.
Thank you.
Yes.
Did you like my analogy there?
Yes, I understand what you're saying. I really struggle with this because on the one hand, all the things he was like with the air raid offense and, all that different stuff, an innovator, and the fact that he won at 3 non-traditional.
He went to smaller market schools and
Texas
worked a
Tech,
little bit
Washington
harder.
State, Mississippi State. That worked against him, because he wasn't at a big brand where it was a little bit easier to recruit and do all these things. And he still had a 59.6 winning percentage. But don't you also think if Mike Leach, if you didn't have the pirate stuff that goes along with Mike Leach and just kind of the, the persona that Mike Leach had, don't you think that plays into this argument as well? It's like, oh, come on, just get him in. He was a great guy.
I think that, there's kind of, if he was just some average Joe, you didn't have kind of something to hold on to his face and name, then this wouldn't be a conversation.
Right. Because the other part
at the end of the day, is that fair? Ultimately,
the other part of me says, okay, this is kind of the Harold Baines argument when we're talking about Hall of Fame. So, okay, we let Mike Leach in at 59.6. Well, what happens when the next guy comes along and he's at 59%? So, are we willing to go down to 59% as well, or we just want Mike Leach in because
I'm giving that round up?
Buckler.
If it was 59.4, I'm going round down. I'm serious. That's my rationale.
So you're saying because we're within rounding range of 60%.
Yeah, because we're so on the fence, and this is within kind of the quote unquote rounding range. You know what I mean? It's like, again, it's like coming to your professor at the end of the semester. Do I
gotcha.
technically deserve the D+ because of what it statistically came down to? Sure, but did I come to class every day? Was I nice to you? Did I do all my homework?
You know what I mean? Nice to you?
Can I get this? Did I pay attention? Did I stay awake in class? You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of how I view it in terms of him being, the stuff you talked about, the pioneer, a nice guy, the kind of goofiness towards him. That's why I have more of like the leniency to, all right, let's just round you up here. Let's boost you up. But if he was 59.4, I'm serious. I wouldn't have as much of like, this would be less of a something that I would be contemplating. I wouldn't give him the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, Salty brings up, Craig James. Don't ask him if Leach was a great guy who did things the right way. He would not be in that. But he took Texas Tech to a bowl game every season. He was there, So I can buy your argument. We're within roundup range. And, like I said, I think that one of the, between him being an innovator of the game, I think that has to play into his favor, and the fact of where he won all these games that he won at. Again, like, he put Texas Tech on the map. Now, he didn't completely put Washington State on the map. He didn't necessarily put Mississippi State on the map, but he still won more games there, at those non-traditional college football type, small town type places. I won't say Lubbock is a small town, but you know what I'm saying.
Speaking of Leach, though, did you see Monty Kiffin passed away yesterday?
I did.
Another kind of, football figure.
Tampa 2.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't, and this is going to be shame on me, but I didn't realize his involvement with, the Cowboys for a few seasons there on the defensive side of the ball. And I didn't know that he was basically like laying, like, it got to a point where he was just kind of following his son around. Like, he was his assistant coach at USC. That didn't go well. And then, he was on Ole Miss staff, like everywhere.
Yeah. He was a senior analyst, I think is what he was.
Yeah. But I didn't realize the role that he kind of played on that USC era. Cause I was going through his Wikipedia page and I was like, he basically was like the assistant head coach at USC was my kind of understanding, or, you know what I mean? Like associate head coach, or that it was a pretty significant role. And I don't know. I think that's kind of, even though that didn't go well, and, Lane, I think he was just a little premature in his career. I think them being able to do that is super cool, like coaching together and that whole situation. It just felt like it was cool to see Lane take care of his dad towards the end there.
I think he was premature in his career because his dad was Monty Kiffin, basically.
Right.
But yeah, I mean, you talk about another innovator in the game, and he was in Dallas for a little bit, but made his fame obviously down there in Tampa Bay, and that's why they
12 seasons
Tampa
as a
defense.
defensive coordinator.
Yep,
it's a long time in the NFL.
Still remember 2005 Notre Dame USC, after the game, the pass to Jarrett on 4th down, the press conference, Charlie Weiss, they threw a fade into Tampa 2. You don't complete fades against Tampa 2, but
good old Charlie.
Matt Leinart and Dwayne Jarrett did complete the pass against Tampa 2. Unfortunately, they completed the fade. Good point from Andrew about Leach. You only needed one win to reach eligibility in Mississippi State win their bowl game after
there you go
that year. So that's a good one. That's a good point. I didn't think about it that way. All right, so Fox announced its NFL broadcast teams for the upcoming season. Of course, we've got Tom Brady going into the booth this year. He's going to join the number 1 booth with Kevin Burkhardt, and because of that, you're going to see some guys. Greg Olsen gets bumped from number 1 to the number 2 booth with Joe Davis, and there's some ripple effect. Mark Sanchez, your boy the Sanchez, actually moves up a booth to join Adam Amin in the number 3 booth. Jonathan Vilma is with Kenny Albert. Daryl Moose Johnston is now with Kevin Kugler. Mark Schlereth is with Chris Myers as well. Robert Smith who used to work with Myers, is the odd man out, and he will not be unless he's kind of a swing man, like fills in for somebody sick or something. But what do you think of the overall lineup after these changes? Better, worse? What do you think?
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm pretty indifferent. I don't know. Like, if I know these guys, but like, I don't. Like, I know. Like, if I saw a face and you told me a name, I'd be like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like Mark Sanchez, I know because it's Mark Sanchez. I know Greg Olson. I know Kevin Burkhardt.
Well, like, we're lucky because of the team we happen to be a fan of, and they don't get many number 3 and below broadcast teams doing their games.
Also true, the privilege that we have. And so, yeah, it's just like, I'm just really indifferent. Like, I kind of have to see the season go on. And then if I see something like, oh, these guys are annoying, I'll tell you. But like, I feel like I'm one of those people where I don't get super caught up in it unless it's bothering me, and like, it's not a problem until it's a problem. Essentially, like, if you do something to annoy me or you get annoying or, it's just like, I don't like the way you're kind of presenting the game to us as the fan or the consumer. That's really where I have the issue. But when I look back and I'm like, okay, does this pair go to, I really, again, don't know. And I'm indifferent, but I'll be quick to let you know because I'll mute games, like if I really don't like the way it's going, I'll mute games. I have no problem with that, especially, if I think Greg Olson won't stop talking bad about the Cowboys.
Your boy, Greg Olson. That's right. I mean, the X factor is Tom Brady since he's swinging into the number 1 booth. And I do think that Olson, even though, you don't like him as much, him joining up with Joe Davis, I think Joe Davis is a better football, like football announcer than he is baseball. He's like very, like fairly flatline when it comes to baseball, it seems like, with the exception of, like the big exciting moment kind of at the end of the game and that kind of thing. But I definitely think Olson makes the number 2 booth better. I think Sanchez and Adam Amin is a pretty good booth. The others, again, I'm glad that hopefully, the Cowboys don't slip into that category because the others I think they're all just solid, but a lot of guys that have been around.
I do mess with Adam Amin. I've liked seeing the growth of Adam Amin because it started kind of at the beginning of Notre Dame's national championship. That was his kind of breakout when
he's good, and ESPN screwed up when they didn't re-up him and keep him around and have him do more stuff.
I love Adam
Amin.
Let
him go to Fox. Yeah. He's good, but again, like he falls into that he's basically the number 3 booth now. He's pretty good. And I think Sanchez, him and Sanchez is kind of an interesting little pairing there.
I think that is a good pairing because I think Sanchez, I think he's enough to kind of get those, like, just enough out of Sanchez, like, I think Sanchez can be he's kind of a hater sometimes. He's like me with Paul Skenes.
Or fill in the blank. Greg Olson should fill blank after winning his 2nd straight sports Emmy while getting demoted to the number 2 team for Tom Brady taking his number 1 spot this season.
I think you're going to like this one. He should feel like a jealous ex because he may be the better broadcaster, but Fox is banking on Tom Brady, the greatest football player of all time, drawing in more eyeballs because he's Tom Brady, right? And so more eyeballs is more money for Fox. They don't care if, Olsen has more experience and he's potentially a better broadcaster. Tom is basically the new hot girlfriend that everyone can't keep their eyes off of, and that's what Fox is rolling with. They know that more people are going to watch because Tom Brady is going to be on your TV on the call, and that's all that matters to them.
It's a good explanation. When you think about it, like Greg Olson, what he turned into in the booth is a little bit like Tom Brady's playing career.
Yeah,
like Tom Brady gets drafted late and turns into one of the best ever. And I'm not saying Olson is one of the best ever, but again, he's won 2 sports Emmys.
He's done nothing.
He has outperformed. Yeah, he has outperformed what I think most people thought he was going to be, based on the fact that he was kind of maybe a little bit better than a rank and file type guy as a player, but Tom Brady is the GOAT, so you've got to part the waters and let Tom Brady come in if he wants into the booth, and you move him into the number one spot until, like if he moves in there and he shows that he can't be there, it's not like he's going to get demoted. He's either going to stick around and you're going to put up with it because you gave him a big, long contract, or he's just going to say sayonara and he's going to go do something else. But, I mean, yeah, it is what it is, basically, right? There's a pecking order in sports, and Tom Brady goes to the top of the list because he's Tom Brady. So Olsen should just still feel pretty good that he's going to get a pretty good check to still call some pretty good football games. He just won't get to do a Super Bowl for the foreseeable future. RG3 says there needs to be an NBA versus NFL slam dunk contest. Do you buy or sell that idea?
I think this is going to maybe surprise you, but I sell the idea. At the end of the day, these guys are all, whether or not you're in the NBA or the NFL, because, I mean, let's think about it. It's going to be running backs, safeties, corners, wide receivers. These are all tall freak athletes, right? There's nothing an NFL player can do that an NBA player can't do in terms of dunking. I don't buy it. The athleticism is there. And I don't think the NFL players would add anything. There's no dunk that, an NBA player does, there's no dunk that an NFL player does that an NBA player couldn't replicate or do themselves. It's just the only thing that'd be fun about it is it would be fun to see them kind of, jaw jack and go after bragging rights at the end of the day. Like that would be fun. The natural competitiveness of, just going against each other. But outside of that, it's like, you're not getting anything. It's like you're going to see some crazy, spectacular dunk, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, you're just creating another reason to maybe get a couple more eyeballs, like on an All-Star weekend or something like that, because I thought about it, like the basketball players are obviously still going to be more skilled. You're going to have a handful of the football players.
They touch a basketball every day.
Exactly. And I think football player, like RG3 came up with this idea when he saw Richardson, the Colts quarterback, slam that ball down here recently. So I think that's kind of where he came up with this. And it's like football players are still going to look like a football player for the most part, going up trying to dunk a ball. It's just not going to be quite.
All it would take is one guy coming down wrong from the NFL, and then it's completely done.
That's right. And
it's completely because those guys are used
coach,
to coming
no general
down like
manager,
that.
No owner is going to sign off on it.
Exactly. It's just waiting for that injury to happen.
Yep. Shamrocks and Shenanigans asking if Greg Olson's the Ty Willingham recruit who left from Miami and then became the best tight end in the nation there. That is one and the same. That is exactly him. You nailed it.
Ding, 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 right. Ding, 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 ding.
Okay, Jess. Justin Bieber recently performed at a wedding in India. My question to you, who would you want to perform at your wedding?
This is funny because I filled out my few artists here, and for fun, before the show, I asked Naomi. I was like, "Hey, we're doing a fun question to kind of end the show. I want who would yours be?" And I came up with a reasonable list. Like people who could accommodate a hundred of people, wouldn't just intro, maybe half the group or. But Naomi, on the other hand, just went with her favorite female artist that no one will know. So. I'm just going to say her name's Meg Thee Stallion. And again, that's exactly my point because no one knows who that is. But for my list, I went with John Legend or Bruno Mars at the top.
Those are good.
And I think, again, because they have a wide range, good vocals, I would probably lean Bruno Mars because he's more of kind of like that, like get you moving, dancing kind of. And John Legend's more of your like slow songs, kind of crying, romantic, those type. So that was my kind of combination at the top. And then if I went more kind of fun, I went with Post Malone because he's another guy who's got a wide range of he's done hip hop, rap, and now he's been doing like country songs with Morgan Wallen. So just again a wide range. I think that would be more of someone on the fun side. Big Cowboys fan. I don't know if you knew that. And then the last one,
I did. I've seen him wear. He's got the same that silky smooth starter jacket like I bought.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And then the last one was Ed Sheeran because I think you can't go wrong with Ed Sheeran. He's kind of the perfect middle ground.
Anthony says he's 58 and he's heard of Megan Thee Stallion, and I've heard of her as well. DK.
Yeah, but you probably guys don't listen to her music.
Yeah.
Snoop Dogg would be fun.
John says Snoop Dogg. First he said Motley Crue. I can't imagine Motley Crue with like the dances that you would be doing if Motley Crue was doing your wedding. But, you know, like Snoop Dogg, I just envision him, you know, like thinking of a master plan, like in, you know, in old school, you know, that kicks off the streaking scene. You know, bring your green hat.
DK
Gwar,
couldn't wait for it to ask.
had to be a Gwar reference tonight. Stymie says Van Hagar, ballads and dance. That might not be bad. Little Van Hagar wouldn't be bad. I was thinking, you know, like a little more like I do like your Bruno Mars. I think that would satisfy a lot of people. Train was one of the ones that I was thinking of because, like, you know, Patrick Monahan, the lead, you know, like they're kind of a fun band and, you know, kind of pop it up and all that different stuff, you know, with like the different hits, you know, of course, like Bruce was someone who came to mind. I thought about the Foo Fighters because I like the Foo Fighters, but I don't know that. Well, I think they would, you know, like Grohl. I think that could be like he can do a lot of different stuff. So I think he could get some people out on the dance floor as well.
Where would Justin Timberlake fall for you? That's someone I thought
that's
about.
not bad. That's not bad because like he could work the crowd. I feel like
that's what I mean. He's a
pretty
performer.
Good as well. Yeah, that's
walk
true.
around with the mic. The ladies would love him.
Yeah. Benjamin says Journey. Like if you had you know, like Steve Perry doing it, I could go for that. But I don't even know who the guy's name who replaced Steve Perry. So I don't know if it would be quite as good. But apparently this thing that Bieber did, man, it was one of those, you know, the ultra rich, you know, and like the whole wedding cost something like $350 million or something like that. Just insane.
Sheesh.
Yeah, like I feel like you should have got to know that guy, whoever the dad was.
He should be just on cue for the next like month at your house.
Right, exactly. Megan Thee Stallion. You're right. Like I just
it'd be fun for like 3 songs and then we'd be over it.
Yeah, you got to get the people out of their seats and, you know,
you just got to appeal to a lot of people.
DK is going with Shakira, but he said that would end up being his shortest marriage. Probably so. Get an Elvis impersonator. You like that?
Yeah.
All right. Well, I think that's going to do it for today. Good show. Had some fun. Hope everyone gets through the weekend okay. I know we've got a commitment coming up tomorrow and another commitment on Monday. So I guess we'll see exactly how things go. But here's what I know. We're 19 days away from the start of fall training. So can't be too bad. It's coming.
We're almost there.
It's around the horizon. That's exactly right. All right. We will wrap it up with that. Appreciate everybody being here tonight. Of course, hit that like button if you would before you leave. Notice there was no drama in the chat the last couple of nights. Weird how that happens. Huh?
Weird.
I know. All right. Have a great one. Great weekend. We'll talk to you Monday. IB Nation Sports Talk.